All right. Today, Thursday, we are joined with the one, the only JDS, Jordan de Souza, all the way via Berlin. Jordan, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Joel.
No problem. It's great to see you.
It's been a long time.
It has. My goodness. You're looking as smiley and energetic
I
as always, though, which is always great.
don't think I've ever been this well rested in my life. I'm
So,
ready to go. You call me anytime. I'm ready to go.
all right, this is good. So some people have submitted some questions, but one of them is you're a Canadian conductor, but you are not in Canada. Where are you right now?
I'm in Berlin. We were actually supposed to travel, my wife Jana and our little girl Beatrice. We were supposed to fly actually to Canada March 13th or something like that. So right when
Oh
lockdown, the
man.
lockdown started a little earlier in Germany than it did in North America. So we had made the decision. We could have made it out and we thought, let's not be in a vulnerable position we were actually supposed to go to Cuba and then spend some time in Toronto as well. And we ended up saying, you know what, right now home is here for us and it's a great infrastructure. It's the right place to be for us right now. And so we've been in lockdown and quarantine, and as things have started to open up again in Berlin.
Cool. Toronto's just about to go into what they call phase two, which just means more businesses are starting to open, that you're allowed to go into the stores and all that stuff. What is it like in Berlin, for example, restaurants or
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah, things were, of course, extremely strict at the beginning, and it's been already over the last month or so starting to relax. That restaurants are, so every patio has got the spacing and everything planned out. But people are. It's surprising sometimes how close it seems. If you kind of blink and don't look twice at all the face masks, it almost looks like things are back to normal here. But also the kindergartens, the schools, they've been opening up in phases over the past couple weeks. So we're starting to find this sense of normalcy. But of course, with that comes also the danger of a spike in cases again. But let's hope that it's only positive steps forward.
Wow. Wow. Kids already in Ontario, they just sent an email that three options: either send your kids to school, send your kids half days, or keep your kids at home. So we'll see what all the boards decide in September, but that's what they're currently entertaining.
Wow.
So
Yeah. We'll see what
wild.
comes next.
Yeah. Well, and how long have you been in Berlin?
We got here. That's a good question. 2016. We've been here since 2016. Yeah, time has gone by
Uh,
quickly.
Jeez.
Yeah.
One burning question is, did you see last year's NBA finals?
Of course. I have actually, now, especially now with the MJ documentary too, I'm so glad that there's so many people jumping on the bandwagon. But, we were like, I've been watching the playoffs. I remember Bregenz a few summers ago, 4 or 5 years ago, there was another friend of mine who was also an NBA fan. And we were staying up at 4 or 5 in the morning watching the play, and it wasn't even our team. So when the Raps started
Right.
making a run last year, we started. I come from a big family, and all my older brothers, we always watched the Raptors from their first season, like Reggie Slater and Doug Christie and all those guys. We were diehard fans, man. Damon Stoudemire. So
Yeah.
I remember, like when Kawhi made the big shot, it was the middle of the night. My wife was away on tour. I was here with my daughter. It was like 4 or 5 a.m. She had just started really sleeping through the night again, and Kawhi made that shot, and she was lying in my arm, and I jumped up, and I had to stop myself from screaming, and somehow didn't wake her up. I'm running around my house, and I finally come back, get down, like, okay, I got to relax now, lie down and go to sleep, and she wakes up. I'm like, okay, here we go. So I didn't sleep at all that playoff run, but it was so worth it.
Oh, good. I think that's what's easy to forget sometimes, that, yeah, there's Canadians or just fans all over the world who
Oh my
followed
gosh, yeah.
along and celebrated.
And
Oh,
people love the
cool.
Raptors too.
Yeah, they do. They do. They do for sure. Good. Did anyone else care in your circle in Berlin what was going on, or no?
I think I think they realized how much I care, and so they kind of came along with it. But I can't say there's too many. Football, soccer is the big sport over here. But there are
Yeah.
people who are appreciators of great sports, and they understand what a championship means.
Good. Good. Okay. What was it? This crazy world of opera. I think we've all been having perspective, being in sort of isolation. What was it that got you into this crazy world of opera?
I guess I probably saw my first opera at the COC when I was maybe 14 or 15 years old. So not really that early. I was by myself. I remember my teacher, who's still a friend of mine to this day at St. Michael's Choir School, he said, I can't go tonight. Here's a ticket to Goethe Dämmerung. That's something, I think it was Goethe Dämmerung with Bradshaw conducting. And I never heard of it. I didn't have any idea there was three intermissions and everything. But I remember it wasn't one of those Wagner experiences where I thought, oh my gosh, I need to hear this for the rest of my life. But I remember just staring at Bradshaw for like 5.5 hours thinking, this guy is possessed by something, but somehow I kind of understand what he's going through. And the way the orchestra was so committed, and from the beginning to the end, that they were this kind of common thread. I was really taken by that experience, but actually it didn't throw me into opera. It was really in college, I'd say. When I was at McGill, I did my undergrad and my master's degree at McGill, and it was Così. They were doing a production of Così, and my arm was kind of twisted to come and assist this opera, and I was so glad that I had the chance, because I think it's the teamwork of it, really. The fact that everybody coming together to climb this mountain, but you can't carry everything by yourself. You got to find a way with everybody together to get there, and that was special with opera.
Nice. Yeah. Um, so 2016, I'm trying to remember. I think that was around the time that we worked on Carmen at the COC.
Exactly. I think it was the season. Yeah, I think that was maybe 15 or 15, 16. You're right.
Maybe
Yeah, just before. Exactly.
just before. So what there was a big leap, I guess, to do that. Was there like a crossroads that came in your career where you're like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, I never really thought about, and I still don't probably enough think about the career aspect of it. It was really always a life thing, kind of like this life in music. We were in Montreal. It came actually a bit early. We were in Montreal. After I finished my master's there, I'd started working there and also doing some assisting at the COC. That same season, I think of the Carmen that you did your Carmen. I had got my debut just before at COC doing a few performances of Figaro. And so I kind of assisted a full season, but we were in Montreal. We had said, you know what? Like, I'm comfortable here, and I don't like the feeling of being comfortable. And I realized that when I was in these other places, that I was having this kind of, and I realized if I didn't uproot myself, I wouldn't leave. And so I kind of made the decision. We made the decision together as a family to say, look, okay, first let's just get out of Montreal and go to Toronto. And the thing is, our hearts were in Montreal. It would be probably the city, if anywhere in the world we chose to live, it would probably be Montreal. We absolutely love it there. But we realized the potential for growth in the way we wanted to keep discovering new things wasn't going to be the same. So we first got away and went to Toronto. I did a full season kind of assisting at the COC and doing those Figaro performances, and was lucky then to find the bridge to Europe, which was to go to the Komische Oper in Berlin.
And how has that been?
It's been amazing. To be honest, though such a beautiful chapter in our lives in so many ways. To be in a city like Berlin that's rich in so many historical ways, scary and inspiring. And so to be in a place like this, to be in a tradition of houses here, the Staatsoper down the street from us, we're the Komische Oper, which has been an amazing theater for the way that they wanted to revolutionize the approach to musical theater, to come back to the idea that musical theater, that these things actually bear equal weight, and that a museum is not the most interesting way to curate this art form, and that really it's about living, breathing artists being in the room, working hard, slaving away at things together, and seeing. So when it wasn't popular to have 6, 7, 8 week rehearsal periods or an ensemble, this is something that they really strove to, and that's something from Walter Felsenstein, who started the house, through guys like Harry Kupfer, Götz Friedrich, now Barry Kosky. So to me, to walk into something that was such a great tradition from which you can learn. The musicians in the orchestra have been playing this some of their 30, 40 years. They play in Bayreuth every summer there. And for me to stand there and conduct my first, I don't know, Giovanni or something like that, with these musicians that have played it for Mazur when he was there, for Kirill Petrenko, for all these great people, but them as great musicians also have so much to offer about this. That was exactly the kind of environment that I didn't know I was looking for, but I was so lucky to find, just because there's so much more. There's so much opportunity in Europe and in Germany specifically.
Do you ever think of what would have happened if you had stayed in Canada, or kind of no looking back and
I'm not good at looking back much or looking forward, and
Mm,
I don't. We do think about, like even in this crisis, for example, we thought, hey, this might be our chance to go back and spend 6 months in Canada because we love Canada. Like it's not that we're here because we think it's better than Canada. It's
Mhm.
that right now it affords us the perfect balance of quality of life, a great place for our daughter to grow up, a great place for me to be able to work, for Jana to be able to work as a singer. It's just the perfect thing. But we can imagine definitely having been in Canada and staying in Canada. I can, we fantasize about being able to go back sometime. But if we boil it down to like professional circumstances and trying to give yourself the best potential, you need opportunity. And that was definitely what Europe afforded us.
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of I don't want to say it's unfortunate that Canada can't support the amount of opportunities which Europe does, but it's so exciting to see artists like you thrive in a new environment and sort of keep growing and keep becoming sort of who you were meant to be, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and I think you know what, it's encouraging also to see how many like there's so many Canadians that are over here that I didn't know of before, or didn't know were Canadian, or that have under the radar kind of because that's the thing is that it's tricky in this day and age because social media and all those things are real and they are really useful parts of the world and young people are not being trained or having or being challenged to think about what's the relationship to me in this thing and how does it influence my relationship to my craft as well, and it's important to do it, and if you do it, to do it well, but for that to be the goal or for that to be the focus that we're doing this in order to be able to, I think we have the cause and effect really backwards. And that this idea of just chiseling away at yourself, one of the things I love to read are biographies of great musicians and things like that. And it's amazing how much that attitude was with them. Like, no matter what you're doing, do it as well as you can do it. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. A little bit of that attitude, but also that, not these distractions that can come. And this has, I think, also been a time for probably almost too much self-reflection, but it's such an important part of what we're doing. And once the wheels are spinning, and it was going so fast, like the difference from the last 3 months, I was supposed to be in Russia for a month to rehearse Rake's Progress while we were running, I think, 4 different productions in Berlin. I had Peleas, Bohème, Don Giovanni, and Weimar Republic era operetta by a guy called Jaromir Weinberger, all running in repertoire while commuting back and forth from Russia. That was supposed to be March, April. And instead of that, I was here spending all this great time with my daughter. She learned how to write. We did all these amazing things, and I got the chance to take a step back from learning specific scores. At the beginning, it's almost depressing. Once the cancellations start coming in, I started turning the scores upside down and putting them in my bookshelf and thinking. But then I start to think, wait a second, let's take a step back, and rather than working on a score, I'm working on the way I learn a score again. That's not something we have time to do. The way you score read, the way you approach, like learning about instruments, watching master classes of great instrumentalists, reading great literature, looking into repertoire you haven't looked into before. All of those things have actually been a gift in a way. So it's kind of always for ours, especially it's a lonely profession. You're on the road a lot. You have to find a way to keep a healthy dialogue with yourself.
So are you? I'm guessing I know the answer. In some ways, are you itching to get back into it?
Absolutely. I think like I would be glad if this had never happened and we were always and we had I would much rather be on the other side thinking, oh my God, I'm so tired. How am I going to get to the end of this week? Something like
Yeah.
that, than be thinking, oh my gosh, what's so in that way. But also, there's been some signs of life over here as well. So I think there it's I have to say it's very sad, and I have friends here from North America and also European friends, and we see what's happening to a lot of our friends and colleagues in the US and Canada, in orchestras that are having to shut down, in all of these, and it's we're fortunate to be in a country in which culture always has a high societal value, in that we're all protected. Even if you're furloughed, imagine that, like we have 450 people who work at the Komische Oper alone as employees, and so the fact that we had that security blanket, we feel almost guilty for that we were able to go through with this kind of sense of, and also responsibility to all of our freelance colleagues. And that's the thing that's been also very heartening, is to see all the musicians in all the houses and all the orchestras in the city stepped up right away and said, "Hey, we're gonna." And there've been huge donations to those things to try and support freelance artists. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm definitely itching to go back. But I'm also glad that I have the time to prepare for the things that are coming, because there's going to be a lot of curveballs coming now. And so I was good. I got back into gear. I studied my things that are about 8 months to a year out, got started, so that whatever comes our way in the next 4 or 5 months, we'll be ready to deal with.
Yeah, because it's tricky. I think, like you said, North America's different protocols are different. It's just different for some reason. And just
Absolutely.
a couple days ago, the COC having to postpone or their fall already and having to postpone the spring. It's almost a full calendar year that we'll see shows at the COC, which is kind of unheard of. Yeah.
Absolutely, and then that has impact on the public. That has an impact on the artist. That we take for granted that orchestras that a great orchestra, like the COC Orchestra, can sit down and play Wagner on, and maybe it's, I don't know, 12 rehearsals, something like that. But that's a very few rehearsals for that type of a piece, and that is based on the fact that they're playing together regularly, that they have a certain language they speak, that they have a way, and then all of a sudden it's not an on-off switch, and that's a challenge too of trying to find ways to keep the musicians engaged, and also the ensemble, that the original word of the word ensemble. So
Mm.
yeah, let's see what I always think also we're only reacting to the information we're getting, and they have to, of course, these are big organizations that are responsible for the livelihoods of a lot of people, and they have a responsibility to try and protect their people and to try and protect their organization, and hopefully those things are mostly complementary. But the challenge of having to make a decision that affects 16 months on information that can change in 3 weeks, that's a challenge that's inherent in big companies. But hopefully the government, and I know that they have been doing quite well also in supporting people, so let's hope that we're able to find a way together, and also not to just focus on how depressed this makes us, because that's part of it. But at some point we also have to think, okay, what are things that we can actually actively fix? Because maybe it's education, maybe this is our time to really dig in and say, what are some things that are working in countries like Finland and Germany, that is producing musicians at an unbelievable rate, that are cultural ambassadors of their countries? Like, how can anybody explain the reason that there's almost what 50-60% of the great conductors coming out of the world right now are all coming from Finland, and there's a great teacher there, but they're taught from a young age musical culture. It's the same thing in Germany. And that's something that maybe we can, as a team, people who don't normally have time and energy to be able to invest in, that can put their creative juices towards things like that, and try and say, because learning at home for kids, my brothers have kids in the system, that's not, there's answers that need to be found for that as well. So
Yeah, I think when you talk about how do we re-energize the next generation, or how do we change the system, it boils down to child education, which is, it's kind of growing up. It's the least sexy thing. Like, you don't get into this business to work with kids or stuff like that. It's more, you want to
yeah.
be in the heart of it and be the change and the revolution. But it starts, yeah, like you said, with young education and sort of what you're brought up to believe is important.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
Um, what you've obviously made a lot of right choices. Is there a mistake that you've made? One that you've sort of said, man, if I could do that again, I would, if I could go back and tell young Jordan
If I
something
could
like
go
that.
back, probably focus less on your mistakes.
Yeah.
That's something that also, like, by nature, I really like, coming out of performances, and or coming out of rehearsals, and if all you think about is what went wrong, which is a very important thing. And also, I'm one who believes that you believe criticism more than you believe praise, and that's how you grow, is through. And you have to, sometimes it's hard truths that come at you, and unexpected times. You think something went great, and then comes to a musician thinking, "Hey, man, if you keep going like that, the whole brass section is going to walk out." And you think, wait, where's the disconnect here? But even from those things, the thing you learn is that, like, that old adage of, think here, don't think of the color orange. What are you thinking of? You're thinking of the color orange, right? That we don't operate that way. We have to work towards a positive goal, rather than what not to do, focusing on what to do. And that was something that I wrestled with a lot, especially, I think the thing that helped a lot too it was the volume of performances I had to be responsible for here. When your whole year is around about 12 to 25, 30 performances, the importance you put on each of those nights, you're going out there thinking, oh my gosh, this has got to be, you've heard this has got to be some kind of legendary thing, but that's a totally unrealistic approach and attitude to take. You never find something looking for it that way. So I think having to do 4 or 5 performances a week and of all kinds of different repertoire, you learn to realize that this is more a part of your everyday rhythm, that the person you are at lunchtime and in the canteen with everybody is actually not that far away from the person you're going to be on the podium, if you're going to find a way to kind of bring everything together in a natural way that's going to be genuine enough to convince people to go with you.
Mm, that was good. My next one was going to be like, what other advice would you have for young singers, young conductors? But I think even just being authentic and being true to who you are in all situations is a big one.
Totally. Find find what inspires you and follow that. Like find your passion and chase it, And that's part of it is music, and part of it can be sports, or for somebody else it can be like botany or airplanes or whatever it is. You gotta, and it's not to say, oh, because you have to think you might be because you got to sit on the fence. No, never sit on the fence. If you're gonna go for something, you have to do it. But there's this idea as well that I know it's gonna be tricky, man. I do not envy the people that are coming into college or transitioning to a master's degree or trying to get into the professional world from that at this particular moment in time. Because first of all, you're going to get a lot of advice. No matter what, you get a lot of advice that you should consider other alternatives, and especially now. But I would say, as much as that is true, and if you can find another way to apply yourself for the betterment of others, do that too. But don't focus on this is all noise too. You don't need a lot of fancy things to work on yourself and to work on your craft as a musician, as a singer, as a conductor, as any type of a musician. So in that way, I think it's keep real goals, like keep a structure. That's the thing school and those things provide, that whenever you leave school, you realize, wait a second, I got to kind of put a structure into my own life in order to be the most productive and efficient I can be.
Amazing. Your energy is infectious. And I think more people need to hear from you and hear your thoughts, which what is your dream two-parter? What's the best opera or your favorite opera that you have conducted? And what's the opera you are dreaming to conduct?
Favorite opera my favorite opera that is whatever one I'm conducting at that moment. And like right now, I'm studying Selfreflection again. I've taken a piece that that you can sit down and play from memory from beginning to end. But do you ever really know these pieces? So I'm kind of digging into that again, and I'm again totally fallen in love with a piece that I've done. I think 42 performances of in Japan and Australia, New Zealand, and Berlin, and everywhere. But to discover that again is great. I don't know if I can say a favorite, but one that I dream, like top of the dream list, if I could just choose tomorrow, would be Tristan. I think there's something like it's a piece that I also saw maybe I saw it was a year ago, and it was the first time in a while, and that's not a judgment of anybody else's performances that I've been at, but it was the first time in a while where I had like an experience. When this is your job, when every night you're around unbelievable people who can do amazing things, it's easy to start to take it a little bit for granted. And I sat in the theater, it was at the Staatsoper here in Berlin, and they did Tristan, and I really thought, my gosh, there's some kind of depth in the world that I didn't realize existed before, but now I cannot unlearn. And I wanted to just kind of and so that kind of piece for me, there's some kind of deep wells of something that he was tapping into that I want to understand better. And actually, it was something that there's another thing I think Corona has taught me, is stop accepting all of these weird truisms we take about ourselves, whether it's other people tell or you tell yourself. Some things as simple as, I always say to myself, oh, I work the best, I'm the most productive in the night, because I always stay up late, but after a while, that's true maybe for 3 months or 6 months or a year. But at a certain point, your relationship to those quiet hours changes, and actually you'd be more productive at 11. So actually you have to keep changing things up. And I've broken apart all my systems that you take comfort in the fact that things have worked. So why mess with them? But that's not actually the way we learn or keep developing. So in that way, Tristan, I always thought, oh, it's something you got to keep, until you're old enough, you don't touch that, And I still feel that way like about the Mahler symphonies. People have offered me before to conduct the Mahler symphonies. I'm saying, I have other things to do before. I have to go through all of Schubert before I'm going to conduct Mahler symphony. I'm still making my way. But Tristan, yeah, I was amazed at how immediate it felt. Like, I want to start studying this tomorrow.
That's the thing. Sometimes you just have to throw yourself in and know that you may fail miserably or
Totally.
but you press play and it's like it's gonna run. And so learn what you can,
Exactly.
soak up what you can as well.
Exactly.
Oh, nice. And what does the future hold? I don't know. I was always against goals as a teenager, and then it was kind of like, where do I want to be, and what do I want to aspire to? Where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years from now?
I am not at all a goal-oriented person. I don't think, to be honest, I don't think about it. And I do think about it in the fact that like I have my engagements all set until 22, 23. We know everywhere we're going to be. And we always strategically weigh things that come in about what, how we do with my kind of team. But I couldn't tell you, I don't have I think that actually, like I said to Jen the other day, like this life is actually the dream, not this nightmare part of it or this kind of dark cloud coming over right now. But this idea, we stop ourselves sometimes. And that happens in a place like Berlin, walking down the street thinking, people couldn't even do this 40 years ago. Like us holding hands, the two of us with our little daughter, crossing out what used to be a huge wall dividing and was a lot more than just a physical wall there. And the fact that here we are in this gorgeous city surrounded by unbelievable musicians, getting the chance in a great house with a great team to focus on making great music, that's already that's a dream. I want more of kind of, chasing this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you seem to be one of those who I think, like you said, living in the moment is so important and not taking for granted where you are to make sure that you enjoy where you are.
Absolutely.
Uh, Jordan, this is great. I hope someday that Canada will see more of you. We
It's coming.
we
Like
need
we already have more things together. I was supposed to be there in the fall. I don't mean to stay away from Canada. I'm coming back.
good, good, because we need you. We need this energy, and we need young people to kind of be inspired, be educated, and sort of see this next wave of what's going to happen here in this country sort of come from incredible leaders like yourself.
Thanks, Joel. You too, man. And if anybody's watching this is interested in being part of it, let's find a way to get in touch. We'll change the world.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Good. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for chatting. We'll do it again sometime because this is good.
My pleasure, man. Thanks.
Awesome. So thank you, Jordan Souza, Canadian conductor in Berlin. Next week, next Thursday, we have an opera pub with soprano Suzanne Tafot. Be sure to tune in and listen to this incredible soprano live from Montreal. Thank you for tuning in and look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers.